Podcasts on unctv.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNCTV.
These are the now familiar scenes of the devastating aftermath of a magnitude 7 earthquake that hit the nation of Haiti on January 12, 2010. In the weeks following, the world's attention was focused on Haiti, from its history of independence to its modern-day poverty. Coming up next, we'll meet North Carolinians whose focus has been on this independent Caribbean country for a long time and will continue to be, as they work not only to help victims of the earthquake and Haitians living right here in our state, but also to inform the world on Haiti's rich history and heritage. That's next on Black Issues Forum.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNCTV.
Welcome to another edition of Black Issues Forum. I'm Deborah Holt Noel. We're glad to have you here with us. Only a couple of weeks into the year 2010, the nation of Haiti was rocked by a massive earthquake that killed hundreds of thousands of people and wrecked its fragile infrastructure. People worldwide flooded to its aid, including many here in North Carolina. Now, months later, the world's focus is diverted, but the needs in Haiti have not diminished. Today, we'll meet two people living in North Carolina who are continuing their work to help Haiti and an educator working to inform the public about this independent nation. We'll meet them in a moment, but first, we bring you this story about a local effort in Charlotte to raise funds and awareness to help Haiti. Inside the North Carolina Blumenthal Performing Arts Center in Charlotte, audience members are treated to an evening of dance, poetry, music, and education in a local group's efforts to raise funds and awareness for Haiti. The group is the Center for the African Diaspora.
We Are Haiti's event is designed really to do a couple things. One is our financial goal is to raise $25,000 for the relief effort in Haiti. Secondarily, we want to try to promote Haitian history as it affected the Caribbean. So we'll have a panel discussion tonight talking about that very courageous history going back to General Dessalines in 1804 and Toussaint L'Ouverture. But I think it's important that the Center for the African Diaspora talk about not just simply the poverty and the illiteracy that's there, but the really courageous and beautiful people that have been in Haiti.
In the weeks following the magnitude 7 earthquake in Haiti that caused up to an estimated $13 billion worth of damage and left an estimated death toll of nearly 250,000, news of the natural disaster often included mention of Haiti's national pride and resilience despite its history of poverty and political upheaval. This event, put on by the Center for the African Diaspora, showcases those disparate aspects.
It makes us feel more proud to know that Haiti, as we know the history of Haiti, to be the first black country to step up front and do something about the situation. And since then, I'm very proud, even though it takes a tragic situation to bring it to this point, but we were glad that every community from every African community has come together to support Haiti, to elevate Haiti. And it's a proudful moment for me. And that's why I'm so glad to call myself Johnny Z, the Haitian poet. If I spoke Japanese, I'll tell you while I sneeze. Watashiwa.
Johnny Zephyr, or Johnny Z as he's known by locally, grew up in Haiti but has lived in Charlotte for the past 12 or 13 years. He's been working with two groups, a nonprofit called Restore a Dream and another independent group called Broken Reflection, which produced a book of poetry to help raise money for Haiti before the earthquake and after. Another North Carolinian of Haitian heritage living in Charlotte is Sabine Guerriere. She's not only working hard to help Haitians victimized by the earthquake, but those living in Charlotte as well. And she's been doing it for a long time.
One of the reasons we decided to physically go to Haiti ourselves, because we know from experience, like I said, I worked in Haiti before as an administrator of hospital. So I was in Haiti receiving the goods coming from international, and now as an organization, I'm providing the goods to the victim. So I know from both ends how things work. Many times the victims do not necessarily get the donations, the supplies that they're supposed to receive. So we, 36 of us, including 29 medical professionals and 7 other people to help with the logistics and interpretation, we went to Haiti and we physically, directly, hand to hand, handed the victims the supplies. That way we know the people of Charlotte who had donated a whole lot, 43,000 pounds of supplies, have actually reached the victims. Unfortunately, when we were down there, all the people that we met, we went to the northern side of Haiti, in the north region, where 45,000 plus earthquake victims have been moved, have been migrated to Haiti. They have not, when we got there, received the help that they needed. We met with several people who are working for other big organizations here in America, and they have not received anything. So it's small organizations like ourselves and volunteers coming from all over, bringing supplies with them, that's really making a big difference from what I saw.
Yes, they scorned you. Yes, they never forgave you for defeating Big Bad Napoleon on the battlefield.
While people like Sabine and Johnny Z are doing what they can to help by sending assistance and upholding the heritage of Haiti, others like Professor Jamal Turner are doing their part to educate the public about Haiti's history and its bearing on American history.
There are several things in Haitian history that has impacted African American history. And we have to go back right after Haitian independence and understand the impact that the independence movement had on the Nat Turners, the Denmark Veseys, the Gabriel Proziers, the Harriet Tubmans, the David Walkers, all of which were tremendously influenced by the Haitian Revolution and certainly had a great bearing on their need and understanding of the necessity of revolution and the defeat of slavery in this country. The second phase of Haitian history, which was most important, was during the Harlem Renaissance. The third impact that Haiti has had on our history here in America is the revolution of the 60s and 70s, or what we call the Civil Rights Movement, where most of your radical or leftist black organizations adopted Haiti's revolutionary policies of Pan-Africanist ideology to actually enhance the movements of the 60s and 70s.
Even amid the present-day poverty and destruction that is often cited, there is an undeniable resilience still found in the people and heritage of Haiti that compels Haitians and people worldwide to continue efforts like this one to lift up this country to a position of greater strength and independence.
And I'd like to welcome today's guests. In the studio, we have Professor Jamal Turner, Professor of Humanities and African American History and Literature in the Department of English at North Carolina A&T State University, and he studied the history of Pan-African nations. We also have Johnny Zaffer, better known as Johnny Z, the Haitian poet, who is an artist living in Charlotte and working to help children in Haiti. And we have a guest by telephone with us today, Sabine Guerriere, founder and director of Haitian Heritage Friends of Haiti. Welcome to both of you here in the studio, and Sabine, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Very much.
Wonderful. I would like to just go back to talking a little bit about the history, because during the devastation and the reporting about the devastation in Haiti, Professor Turner, we heard a lot about the poverty that's in Haiti, not only now, but for a very long time. Can you talk about some of the elements that may have contributed to its current day economic crisis?
Absolutely. I think one of the areas that we need to focus on initially is to understand what happened after the Haitian Revolution occurred, speaking specifically of the Franco-Haitian Pact that was put together in 1824. And essentially what that did, it put Haiti back in France's pocket because of the indemnity that was forced upon the Haitian nation to pay France in order to recognize its independence. So you have a growing, fledgling republic that's coming into its own, but has no economic infrastructure or base to support the economic development of its people. As the years passed, you had several American presidents, and I will go back starting with Jefferson. You have your Madisons, you have your Jacksons, all of which took a negative tone toward the Haitian people. In other words, there was no trade, there was no economic agreements between recognized nations who were independent. The American government still refused to recognize the independence of the Haitian nation. Therefore, there was no economic trade or partnership developed in the Western Hemisphere with Haiti. And if we want to fast forward that, during the early part of the 20th century, the American invasion of Haiti from 1914 to 1934, one of the principal problems that was created during that period was, once the invasion took place, all of the funds, all the dollars, all of the currencies was removed from the Haitian National Bank and was taken and placed in First City Bank in New York. Again, a tremendous blow to a nation trying to develop economic independence and sovereignty, but yet suffers at the hands of Eurocentric individuals who never forgave the Haitian people for the revolution.
Let's talk a little bit now. I'd like to go with you, Johnny Z. Despite the economic struggles and even the political unrest that we haven't really talked deeply about as yet, there is this resilience and this pride, and we got to hear a little bit of that in your interview earlier. Talk a little bit about the pride and the history of Haitian culture that you grew up with and that compels you to continue making sure that you're looking out for your brothers and sisters, even though you live here in Charlotte.
Which, to begin with, at first in the early 90s, we go back to see how that effect of the negativeness began with politics that affect the economy part of Haiti. That kind of make a lot of us who was in the diaspora, if you will, in the Americas, we move away from Haiti. We were able to feel there is not too many of us representing Haiti, except a few of them. And to go back to that pride, the history of Haiti, that kind of made me feel sad at that time to know they didn't have not too many people in the Carolinas, especially, to represent Haiti in a certain way or another. As doing research, the more I searched, and I didn't see nobody represent except very few on TV and then national board television. So that pushed me, and along with other friends that we talked to kind of bring that pride back to Haiti, knowing where Haiti, as they started, it was something to be proudful about and to learn from those who sacrificed their lives to bring Haiti to where it was. And even though at this time Haiti is in a situation where they're known to be the poorest country of the hemisphere, that I couldn't take it in just easily. So we had to work, and not only to do something to elevate Haiti, but to encourage others to know there is a pride, and we can keep that in Haiti, and that can affect its people as well.
And now I want to turn to Sabine. Sabine, are you still out there for us?
I'm still here.
Now, Johnny Z's been talking about the concerns that existed even before the earthquake hit, and you are well aware, not only because you have relatives there in Haiti, but because you were raised there, I believe, and have been here for a long time but never forgot Haiti and its needs. Talk a little bit about the poverty that you have observed over there and the importance of making sure that you had an organization here to support not only the Haitians there, but the Haitians who live here in North Carolina. Talk about your organization.
Okay, thank you. Growing up in Haiti was the most wonderful time of my life, really, because even though we are a poor nation when it comes to financial, again, but we're not really poor in culture and diversity and natural resources and natural beauty. So I did not realize really how poor we were until coming to America, when every single day, every minute, it is being thrown on your face. And when you're exposed to other stuff, you realize what you did not have. So typically you do not know what you don't have until you have it. So the poverty is great in certain areas in Haiti. You do have 10% of the population, maybe less, that they do not know what poverty is about. But I have seen it with my own two eyes. I have lived among the people who are poor, who are eating rocks for food because it is salty. And after they eat it, they suck on it, then they drink water. I have seen kids fighting with dogs from the cracks of the table, and that's their day. I have family members who actually eat a grain of salt, and that's their food for the entire day. So building the organization here in Charlotte helped me indirectly to help Haiti prior to the earthquake, knowing that if I'm able to change, to empower one Haitian life here to make them better, I know I am supporting a village in Haiti, because the diaspora, we support Haiti on a daily basis. We send money every single day to our families, to our friends. So when we send money to one family member in Haiti, that person shares the wealth, the money, with the entire community, with the village. And it goes on and on. So knowing that I can assist my country, I don't have to physically be there. I can help the people here in Charlotte be better through education and whatever the case may be, immigration, health care, and so forth. I know that I'm helping my country.
Sabine,
I'm taking a more direct approach.
And Sabine, that gives me the opportunity to talk about the work that all of you are doing in the community. But first, let me just ask, Johnny Z, do you have family in Haiti who was affected by the earthquake?
I personally have my father and all his relatives living in Port-au-Prince, where that place was being affected. And they actually we moved from the place, even though the house wasn't destroyed, but they moved to the tent cities, and to my knowledge, there's few of them, or if not a whole lot, that do not have tents. They can live. They're living on their sheets, and now that we learned that it's about time for raining season, and if it's hot, the weather is hot, they can't handle it. So I try to communicate with him as much as I can, just to keep up with their well-being. And so far, it's not much that has been done, and kind of trying to bring them back to where they can have a place to stay. And I have other relatives on the other side, which is in Carrefour, and I've learned my uncle, that was 3 weeks after, because of him being exposed to the outside living, and his health wasn't too good. He died of fever after 3 days. And we have other relatives who pass in the mountain also. So we personally dealing with the situation in Haiti, as well as working with different projects to continue to help, as there is more need added to what we were already working with.
We're very sorry to hear about your loss, but understand your passion for working to help your family and the families of others
in Haiti. And you have many friends, Professor Turner, and colleagues who you work with who are from Haiti. Share with us a little bit about what they've shared with you in terms of how much help is actually getting to people.
I would have to concur with Sabine. The amount of help that should have been received by the people has not been fully received. So you have a very slow trickle down effect. One of the problems that I understand from most of my colleagues is that, as is the case, unfortunately, there is a certain amount of graft that always will take place. And it, for some reason, starts on this end instead of on the other end. There have been some issues with larger organizations that have received donations that never received, or the people never received them on the ground. One of the things that we're doing as the Center for the African Diaspora is we're working with those grassroots organizations that will ensure that our efforts would not be in vain and that the people on the ground would get the funding. One of the organizations is Hope for Haiti's Children. The benefit that we gave at the Blumenthal, we targeted them because we knew that their track record and the individuals that worked with our organization would ensure that the funds would get from point A to point Z, which they did. We have 3 projects that the center is targeting for long-range objectives. Excuse me. One is education, because most of the schools were totally destroyed and damaged in Haiti. Secondly, healthcare, obviously, with the inordinate amount of devastation, loss of human life, and the maiming of human flesh, there will always be an ongoing need for healthcare, for health supplies, medicines, professional help. And the third is water, as is the case in most countries throughout the diaspora. There is always a shortage of water. So we're concentrating our efforts in those 3 areas, in the long-range projects that the center is focusing on through the grassroots organizations on the ground, is to identify how we can put together the infrastructure that will last, so there will be an ongoing process. We're not just interested in short-term results. We're looking at Haiti's future.
And there are needs, long-term and short-term. Sabine, I'd like to turn to you again. Share with us, I know that you're going to Haiti again soon. Talk about some of those short-term needs and maybe even long-term that you are currently preparing for in your next trip.
Thank you. We're actually meeting tomorrow, the 15th, at Myers Park United Methodist Church with the Charlotte community to go over the mid to long-term goals. As Johnny stated before, the rainy season is around the corner. It actually started raining now, and the tents that were provided, some of them that were provided, are not really useful right now when it starts raining, because we have bad sewage system in Haiti. So when it rains, it pours, and we have flooding and so forth. So we need to get people out of the street into under a roof, into a house. So what we're working on right now, immediately, we need to get people inside a house. We want to look for places, if it's a hotel that is vacant, or a house with a lot of rooms, where we can put some family members, if it's 20, 30 like family members, where we can move in, as many as we can get in there, get them out of the street. That's a midterm. Then later on, we can start thinking about building longer-term houses for those people. When we were in Haiti, we met a family, a group of people. 43 of them were living into 2 small rooms. They took turns sleeping in the backyard outside. But now with rain coming down every single day, what do these people do? Where do they go? They don't have a place. We don't want people to be living like animals, okay, like chickens. So our immediate needs right now when we go is to provide shelter. Then we need to look at health care. Like the professor said, we're always going to need health care, child care, medical care. Right
Absolutely.
now, we don't have a way in Haiti to take care of those amputees that we have going around. Where do they go? Who's going to provide physical therapy for this group of people? How do they go about? We need to worry about transportation.
Well, Sabine, all of your questions really emphasize the fact that there are a lot of needs that remain in Haiti, and we appreciate the work that you're doing, and also you, Professor Turner, and Johnny Z, through your organization, Working Reflection, and there are two other organizations, if you'd like to mention them very quickly for us.
Yes. My book project is Working Reflection, the project, which we're using to support a small group of children in Go Naive that we visited 8 years ago.
And what's the name of the second group?
The second group, the big group that we channel the fund to, called Hearts and Hands for Haiti.
And then there's a third group.
And there's a group we work locally hand in hand. The Working Reflection work with is called Restore Dream. We do different activities to impact the children of our local community as well.
Well, believe it or not, we are completely out of time, and I appreciate both of you coming here to talk with us, share with us. We're going to have more information online. I'd like to thank our guests for coming out once again today. If you have questions or want more information, please visit us online at unctv.org/BIF. There are also links to email us your comments. We thank you for joining us and spending your time with us. I'm Deborah Holt Noel for Black Issues Forum. Have a great day.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV. Podcasts on unctv.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.